Nudibranchs are an order of marine slugs, present in every ocean on the planet, ranging from shallow surface waters down to the deep sea. There are more than 3,000 species, and they have adapted an incredible variety of behaviors, mechanisms, and appearances to make themselves at home in manifold environments. Adult nudibranchs do not have any shell, which puts them at high risk of predation. After all, what ocean predator wouldn't want to snack on an unprotected, squishy blob like this? But these slugs are not all what they seem. If a predator were to ignore the prominent bright colors and patterns, it might be surprised by a horrible taste, injected with stinging cells, or even poisoned by chemical toxins. Alternatively, it might not even spot its prey in the first place because it looked too much like the coral that it was feeding on. Every one of these anti-predator adaptations has a cost and trade-off of some other use of time, energy, or chemical building blocks. In order for an adaptation to become widespread in a population, the benefits must outweigh the expenses. So, how do these adaptations help nudibranchs escape predation? The first approach is to simply avoid being seen. If predators can't find you, you don't need to spend energy on chemicals or toxins to make yourself unpalatable. This lettuce sea slug blends right in with the watercress algae it lives on. Nudibranchs who mimic their environment must restrict their range to one very specific type of habitat and backdrop. For example, a nudibranch who looks just like a sandy sea sponge will stick out like a sore thumb if it wanders onto an astrogorgia coral. If a sea slug cannot mimic its environment, or if it needs to spend time in a wider range of habitats, it must employ a different defensive strategy. This is where many nudibranchs excel. Some species can use defensive mechanisms produced by the food that they eat. For example, the pimpled Philodiella feeds on poisonous sponges, absorbing their toxins into vacuoles in its own body. The nudibranch is resistant to these chemicals and repurposes them for its own defense at a lower cost than producing toxins itself. Chemicals are not the only things that can be taken up from the food sea slugs eat. Some species that feed on cnidarians, such as hydroids or sea anemones, can sequester stinging cells known as nematocysts. Nematocysts are spring-loaded harpoons that fire on impact. Most predators shy away from this stinging potential, but not the opalescent nudibranch. These predators produce chemicals which shield its digestive tract from the stingers. It then transports the nematocysts into the very edges of its gut, into the serrata. Now, when a predator approaches, the slug will contract the cells around the stolen nematocysts, causing them to fire at the threat. A sea slug who has chemical defenses such as these has no need to hide. Instead, it is advantageous to use aposematic coloration to announce their presence to any would-be predators. These bright, flashy colors give a warning that deters predators, allowing the nudibranch to move between habitats without expending extra energy for mimicry. There are even other animals who mimic the aposematism of toxic sea slugs. For example, this flatworm is a Batesian mimic of the highly toxic pimpled Philodiella. To wrap it all up, in this video we discussed a few of the ways that nudibranchs escape predation. They use mimicry and camouflage to avoid detection, or chemical defenses and aposematic visual cues to avoid attack and consumption. These adaptations have led to huge diversity within the group, and new species are being discovered every day.